The 328,000 coin wall. The United States Treasury is now officially the world's largest sovereign holder of Bitcoin, with 328,372 coins locked in a permanent reserve account. This massive stockpile represents nearly 1.6% of the entire global supply, and as of May 2026, it is no longer just a collection of seized assets. It is a strategic wall intended to safeguard the American balance sheet against a shifting global order. This total includes the massive Prince Group seizure from late last year and the recovered Bitfinex funds finally brought under a single unified federal mandate. The era of the government being a forced seller of crypto has ended, replaced by a mandate of state-level accumulation. And the structural shift in how these coins are classified is even more significant than the total amount. From disposal to accumulation. For a decade, federal agencies treated Bitcoin like a hot potato, auctioning it off to the highest bidder the moment legal proceedings ended. That era is dead. Under the March 2025 executive order, the Treasury has shifted from disposal to accumulation, reclassifying these holdings as permanent reserve assets rather than liquid property. Think of it like the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but for the digital age. Instead of dumping supply into the market, the government is now structuralizing its HODL, removing over $25 billion of liquidity from the open market indefinitely. This policy effectively ends the threat of a federal supply overhang that has haunted the market for years, and the security protocols are evolving just as fast. The sovereign custody breakthrough. This shift forced a total overhaul of how the government handles private keys, especially following the $46 million theft from the U.S. Marshals Service earlier this year. White House advisor Patrick Witt recently confirmed a breakthrough in federal custody infrastructure that moves beyond traditional third-party custodians. The new system uses a decentralized network of cold storage facilities distributed across various federal districts. This isn't just about security. It's about establishing the sovereign technical capacity to hold $1 trillion asset class without relying on Wall Street intermediaries. By mastering the engineering of deep cold storage, the Treasury is signaling that it no longer views Bitcoin as a temporary intruder, but as a permanent fixture of the national ledger. This technical foundation is the prerequisite for the next legislative expansion, Scarcity Capture and ARMA. While the current stockpile came from seizures, the American Reserves Modernization Act, or ARMA, aims to scale this to 1 million coins. Introduced in its latest form this May, the bill proposes buying 200,000 Bitcoin annually for 5 years using budget-neutral mechanisms like revaluing gold certificates. By positioning the Treasury to front-run other nations, the U.S. is essentially engaging in scarcity capture. If this legislative push succeeds by the summer recess, the first open market purchases would hit the books by the fourth quarter of 2026. This move transitions the government from a passive holder of criminal proceeds to an active participant in global liquidity. It is a fundamental pivot in how the world's largest economy perceives value, leading to a conclusion that many traditional economists are still refusing to accept: the new reserve architecture. The emergence of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve reveals that we are transitioning from a debt-backed dollar toward a hybrid reserve system where math-based scarcity collateralizes the world's reserve currency. By moving from the disposal to accumulation phase mentioned earlier and solving the sovereign technical capacity of custody, the United States is effectively hedging against its own fiat instability. This transforms Bitcoin from a speculative altcoin into a foundational pillar of national security. For the global macro landscape, this means the era of government-led supply overhang is over. The next phase is competitive sovereign accumulation, where the goal isn't just to regulate the asset, but to own as much of it as possible before the math makes it impossible for other nations to catch up. Watch the Senate Banking Committee markup this June. If the ARMA provisions for gold revaluation hold, the signal for the first federal purchase order is officially green. The race for the final 10% of Bitcoin supply has moved from the retail level to the White House Situation Room. Subscribe for more.